Hey there friends, welcome to my channel. I'm Shannon and I am a painter based in Connecticut, and today I'm going to share with you my process of cleaning up my art space, which you can see behind me. This is important to me right now at this very moment because my art space is also part of a bigger open room that is my living room. I work in the very front corner, and it also happens to be the first thing you see when you come through the door. So I'm going to spend some time tidying today. I shared in one of my previous videos that I was recently diagnosed with ADHD and started taking medication for that. One of the things that I am learning about ADHD and the way that my brain works is that I have always had the desire to be organized. I have bought baskets and bins and storage containers and have planned and tried to implement these things into all the different areas of my life and my home. Sometimes it presents as keeping lists and calendars and physical organizational tools. So today I am going to start implementing some new organizational ideas into my art space. I went to the dollar store the other day. I got a couple cheap little bins and baskets to start organizing my tools, and I'm going to move some things around that I am hoping will make the space feel not just more organized but more functional for the times when I'm sitting down to get my work done and not having to dig to search for all the things that I want to use. So I am first gonna just prep the space a little bit. I'm gonna pull some things out so that I can move around a little bit easier. You can see I have a big chair here that I'm not sure I'm gonna keep it here because it takes up a lot of physical space. And one of my ultimate goals is to make it feel not just cleaner, but more spacious because it is a small space. So yeah, I'm gonna get started. So one of the other things that I have learned about having ADHD, prior to being diagnosed, this is something that I noticed frequently, is I would hyper focus on cleaning one thing or organizing one thing, and it was usually something that really didn't need that much attention. So one of the things I am thinking about as I go today in this video is trying to focus on one area at a time. I'm already finding that I am stopping in the middle of something and mentally having to kind of hit a reset button and think, what am I actually trying to do here? What is the goal? What are the steps I have to take to reach that goal? Literally, sometimes just moving something slightly to the side so I can access another area. It's a lot, but this is a little glimpse into what it's like in my brain. And I think it's important to share as an artist and as someone sharing my creative journey here. This is a big part of the process for me, how I think through things. So I'm gonna keep going. Okay, so another thing that I real quick want to make note of is my actual art space is a hutch. It's a really nice piece of furniture that I inherited from my in-laws, and when we moved here I designated it as my art space, and you can see there is a lot of stuff on it. And up until now I have wanted to have a lot of things in plain sight that I thought were inspiring or just made me happy and gave me some good energy as I'm working. I love having plants. I love having colored glass up top. It just makes it a cheerful space. But the clutter has definitely built up over time. So I'm going to try to keep the feeling of cheerfulness and good energy, but also focus on decluttering areas that have definitely, it's gotten to be a bit much. getting back to the ADHD brain and organizing and making decisions, a lot of times I find myself pausing to think about what I want to do with something, because when it comes to organizing, decisions feel monumental. They feel very big. Things that other people might not even blink and give a second thought to feel like bigger decisions to me. So when I'm deciding, even just clearing out where is something gonna go, I'm thinking 3 or 4 steps ahead. How am I going to stay organized when I'm putting things back? I want to be able to easily find things. So I'm trying to create, and if you have ADHD, you might laugh, but I am making organized piles because piles are definitely a thing where we try to have some semblance of order and organization. And it can be any number of things all over the house, in any room. So here is a perfect example. Organized piles. I am going to take a container that I got from the dollar store, and I'm gonna start putting things from the hutch into the container so that they're still together, but I'm not quite sure how to organize them yet, but I need to get them off of that surface so that I can address other things. So I am going to grab that container and start clearing off that space. An organized mess. That's all you really need to know about me. I'm an organized mess. We have a Christmas pickle. I don't know if you have a Christmas pickle. It is a old German tradition that you hide a pickle in the tree on Christmas Eve, and the first person to find the pickle on Christmas morning gets to open the first gift. I don't make the rules. Another thing about people with ADHD is we're constantly getting excited and interested in trying new things. So this space, even though it's primarily my painting space, I also have the ornaments. I have a lot of jewelry making tools. I do create painted jewelry, but I went through a stage last year of wanting to make beaded jewelry. So, okay, so if you want a perfect example of what I was just talking about, of being an organized mess, I took this little mason jar cover and put all my nail polishes in it, because I keep my nail polishes in my workspace, but I wanted to keep them together. So having this tiny organizational tool, you know, other people would just put them in their bathroom or in a drawer or a makeup bag, but I created an idea in my head of having them organized in my space, in view. Because another thing that is important is oftentimes if something is out of sight, it's out of mind. So by keeping a lot of these things here, I'm reminding myself that they exist and that I might want to use them at some point. I told you, it gets complicated. All right, this is where I'm starting to feel overwhelmed because I've made progress clearing stuff out, and I am internally struggling not to just hyper focus on one thing. I am almost done with my first task, but there's a part of me that's firing off these ideas in my head of, oh, I could just do this real quick, or I could do that real quick. So I grabbed this container so I can finish just putting odds and ends from my workspace into it to clear it off so I can get started. I'm thinking need over want right now. And if I have time and energy and attention when I'm done, then I might organize a little bit of the shelves up top. But for now, I'm really gonna focus on my work surface and my art cart. Back in October and November, when I was starting to think about making ornaments, I bought 6 clay mini pots that I was going to make into upside down Christmas bell ornaments that were hand painted, and they're still sitting in a stack on the back of. These are the kind of things that I impulse have an idea of something I want to make, and I'm all for it, and then I get home and it gets put down and left. I can get frozen in my thoughts if I am trying to make a decision and I just get all caught up in overthinking it. So the timer is also a tool to help me kind of try not to overthink things so much. Make a quick decision and roll with it. All right, so here we go. Set a timer for 1 hour.
Okay, 1 hour and counting.
1 hour and counting. Hi. What's up?
I want to say hi.
1, 2, 3.
Hi.
Okay. All right, so my timer is going. So one of the hardest parts about doing a project like this is actually just getting the motivation to get started, knowing that there are several steps that you have to do first before you can get to the fun stuff, which is actually putting your stuff back in an organized way that you are imagining is going to help you feel really good and accomplished. So I just try to focus on that feeling that I know is ahead of me to push through these parts that are a bit more tedious and not as exciting. Okay, I have reached a point where I am going to start organizing and putting stuff away. If there's one thing I have learned from the stage I went through where I tried to be a minimalist, it's once you empty stuff out, only put back things that you want or need, and then other things you can make a decision later, whether it's clutter, whether you need to throw it away or recycle it or give it away, or just find a different place for it. So as I was pulling stuff out, I made some mental notes of, okay, do I really want to put it back in this space, or do I want to figure out somewhere else in the house to put it, or to just get rid of it, because the clutter definitely builds up over time. I had ideas for things that I was going to make that I'm no longer going with that, so I can either repurpose it for a project with my kids, or I can give it away to someone who might use it. All right, so it's time to do the fun part. So I'm struggling a little bit with whether or not I should do my workspace surface first or the art cart. I think I'm gonna start with the workspace because I'm going to probably pull some stuff off of the art cart and put it on the workspace to make it easier to see my things and to be able to reach them without having to dig through. The art cart is gonna get pretty much a full makeover of sorts. All right, it's time to just get started. The clock is still ticking. So I really love these containers. It comes 3 to a pack for $1 at the dollar store. And I like that they're skinny, so I can kind of move them around and squeeze them into different spaces. But they hold long tools, so I'm gonna use these for maybe some of my brushes or some of my other mark making tools. I was keeping these in my Groot here, but I think I'm actually gonna use Groot the way he was meant to be used and end up putting a plant in his head. So this drawer is empty. I am going to see if these fit. Oh, it's a tight squeeze, so those are not going to go in there. I do have another basket in here that has a lot of my smaller tools, some mark making tools, some erasers and sharpeners, things that I know I can quickly grab when I want to use them. And I use them often, so this is right in front of me while I'm working. So this bin has some palette knives. This is my awesome little tool for opening paint tubes, some mark making stuff, my Neocolor crayons that I love to use. So like I said, a lot of this is decision making and deciding where do these things actually belong that make sense and that I don't have to go hunting for, and also simplifying the space. So the decision to put my paint palettes on the back of my tabletop easel here. I know exactly where they are. They're all together and they're easy to grab when I get started working. Containers for piles. I decided when I started using an art cart to keep all my tubes of paint in these mason jars. It kind of keeps them separated, and when they're organized by color. So I'm going to take a second to redo that. I will do a bit more of a tour in another video showing you what tools I use and which brands I like and what I use them for. So one decision that I'm making is some of my paint tubes are getting near the end. I'm really squeezing out every last drop that I can. So those paint tubes are gonna go in one of these containers so that I know that I need to go and get a new tube at some point soon. So one of the things that I have struggled with working in this space is that living in New England, in the afternoon I get a lot of sun because the sun is coming straight through this window, but then it sets behind the building across from us and it's dark. And you know, if I want to paint after 4 o'clock in the afternoon, it gets really dim in here. We have lamps all over the room, but they're, you know, set to ambient light that is soothing and cozy, not really for working. So I ended up getting this lamp yesterday from Target. It was not expensive. I will say I bought it because it has these little organizational bins on the side. So in my brain, I'm thinking, oh, more places to put things and stay organized, but also that it's smaller and I can put it on my art cart and kind of move it around to wherever I need the light to be. I had thought about getting a lamp stand to put behind me, but I really don't have a lot of space. So at this point, while we live here, I decided to go with a smaller option that hopefully just gives me a little more light to work with, and we'll see how it goes. It also has a couple USB ports in it, and one of the things that I was struggling with was having an extension cord balancing on the edge of my table that I would plug in my chargers to. So this can kind of keep all that stuff off of my workspace. I don't have to worry about spilling paint water on it or coffee. So it might seem like a silly thing, but positioning this cart is actually really important because I'm a lefty. So when I'm painting, I don't want to be bumping my elbow on anything. I want to make sure I have physical space to work and also be able to access these drawers down here. So that's why I don't press it right up against the table. All right, so I just wanted to give you a quick little change of scenery here, just so you can see what I'm dealing with on this art cart. And I apologize if it's a little bit shaky, but you can see I have organizational tools in here that I thought were a good idea, but they're buried and it's not organized. So this container, this mug, this cup back here, I have all sorts of things. I have sunblock in the back corner. So yeah, a big struggle. I know I keep saying struggle, maybe it's a challenge, is making these decisions and sticking to them. So these decisions that I made a year ago of where to put things, you know, having to change course and figure out some other things. So I'm gonna go through this really quick. There's a lot of stuff in here and it's not organized at all. So another thing that I decided when buying this tabletop easel was that it has a handle on the back so I can travel with it. It completely folds up, so when I go away in the summer with my kids or want to go to a park or something, I can pretty easily fold it all up and store paint and brushes and stuff in this drawer. But since I'm not traveling right now, I am going to use this space for some of my tools that I do not use on a regular basis, just so they have somewhere to go. All right, this right here is not nearly as much stuff as what I've already dealt with up there, but it's overwhelming me because it's the odds and ends that I don't know what to do with. So a lot of stuff is just going to go in this bin and go on the bottom shelf, and that's going to be my deal with it later because it's out of sight for the most part, out of mind. So probably at least half of this stuff is just going to end up on that bottom shelf of the art cart to deal with later. You can see from this video that I kind of have modular pieces that I can move around for different purposes for my art and crafting with my kids. It's important for me to have places to put things so my materials don't spill out into the middle of the house and get left all over the place. So having all these little storage solutions is definitely helpful. All right, this is one of those times I am getting drained of energy and stuck on a task that I know is not important and is taking up way too much time. So I'm gonna put that little drawer back in my tabletop easel, and I am going to keep working on my workspace instead of the cart, because the cart I think is gonna need a lot more attention than I can give it right now. So this is the point I was talking about earlier where I'm finally doing the fun part that I enjoy, which is making decisions about where to put my things, what I want to have within reach, what I want to be looking at, the way that I want it organized, and just seeing things visually cleaned up and decluttered and organized not only makes me feel accomplished, but it helps relieve a lot of mental clutter and fog that I've been feeling having such a disorganized and messy space for so long. These might seem like a silly thing to be prioritizing in my space, but after painting a lot of ornaments for this past Christmas season or holiday season, I decided to stock up on a ton of these woodcut ornaments to paint throughout the year as I'm working on. So I decided I'm gonna work on these throughout the year as I am sitting working on other painting projects, kind of like the earrings that I paint as I go to use up the paint on my palette. I can also do that with these. So they're going on the middle rack of my art cart so that I can grab them pretty easily. And they're not completely out of sight, but they're not also distracting me. So now a lot of it is deciding where to put things that I frequently use versus things that I want to be able to access pretty easily. So in here, I'm putting a couple flat sheets of canvas panel board paper. Since I do use it fairly frequently, I'm putting my pad of palette paper on top so I can grab that. And this is my book of mixed media paper that I use for my 9x12, 8x10, and smaller pieces. So this needs to stay within reach. I'm gonna tuck it over in this corner. My microfiber towels that I use while I am painting, these are gonna get just tucked on the middle shelf. They're not pretty. I don't want them hanging out up here. I kind of want to keep this top shelf as decluttered and simple as possible. I'm feeling proud of myself because it's actually a lot to tackle, because this is my main workspace, my creative space, wanting to make it functional but also an enjoyable place to sit and work. This is actually a smaller clipboard, and this is the one you can probably tell that I use to tape my paper to while I am painting on the tabletop easel. So this one I'm actually going to tuck right down here. So you might be wondering if I hang on to all of my kids' art. So I will quickly share what I do there. I try to keep it in a designated pile or space. I keep a folio and papers, certificates, things that my daughter has written or done at school that I want to hang on to. I file those in there at the end of the school year. So it's one of those deal with it later piles. And by the end of the school year, I can kind of approach it a little less emotionally and look at it as, okay, what do we really want to keep for her to look back on over the years, and what is not so important or whatever. So whenever they work on art, if they don't hang it up on their walls up in their bedroom, I do try to keep it together in the same general space. And that's actually in our dining room, where we have more of a designated cabinet for the kids' arts and crafts. So the short answer is yes, I hang on to my kids' art, but I do have a little bit of a system and process to decide what to keep and what to let go of. And the important thing for me right now is not keeping their art stuff mixed in with mine, because again, it just builds up and adds to the clutter. A big reason that I enjoy painting on paper at the moment is it's really flat. So I can do a lot of painting and it doesn't take up a lot of space as long as I keep it all in the same place in this folio. So I'm gonna take these paintings that need to get varnished. I'm gonna tuck them in the middle of my mixed media paper book because it stays on my desk. It'll stay flat, it'll help flatten the paintings, but I'll also be reminded when I go to take out new paper that, hey, those are still in there, gotta deal with them. All right, we're getting to the end where it's mostly odds and ends of things that I don't want to keep in this space, that need to find a different place in the house to get put away, or need to be donated or put up on my town's Buy Nothing page, which is a wonderful thing. I'm actually going to ignore those things because that could take a little bit more time, and I'm going to work through these top shelves and just do a little bit of beautifying and cleaning up and maybe a little dusting. Everybody has a dead plant in their house, right? This was a money tree. I hope it doesn't predict what kind of year I'm gonna have. If you have any questions about anything that you saw in this video, let me know in the comments, and I'll give you a little bit more of an in-depth studio tour in another video.